Los policías engreídos suelen creer que están por encima de la ley, pero ¿qué ocurre cuando se enfrentan al poder de los juicios? Aquí tienes 4 veces en las que policías engreídos fueron humillados por la autoridad de los juicios.
Office under RC 292141A1, a felony of the fourth degree, the court is going to impose a prison sentence.
Este es el exoficial Charles Reeder, de la oficina del sheriff del condado de Pike. En marzo de 2021, el oficial Reeder se encuentra en el juicio asistiendo a su sentencia en un caso en el que ha sido acusado de robo y manipulación de pruebas. El oficial Reeder supuestamente robó $5,000 de la oficina, que fueron confiscados por los policías de otros casos. Este dinero lo habría utilizado en juegos de azar. El oficial Reeder se declaró culpable de los cargos de robo y manipulación de pruebas. Le espera un máximo de 8 años de cárcel cuando comparezca ante el juez. Ahora se encuentra ante el juicio, donde está a punto de ser humillado por el juez. Vea cómo se desarrolla la sentencia.
Now, the thrust of some of the letters, especially from Ms. Kraft, the licensed social worker.
Yes, ma'am.
Who didn't start to see until March 2019. Talks about the stress from all these cases, all these criminal cases, the Rodin murders and whatever. Did you ever tell your counselors about stealing from the evidence envelopes?
Yes, we discussed that.
I'm sure there was a lot of stress and sleepless nights you had in terms of your post-traumatic stress syndrome or your anxiety caused by the fact that you opened up these envelopes and took money that didn't belong to you.
Yes, Your Honor, I was being treated since 2013 for those conditions, and it progressively got worse.
Well,
Now,
it got worse during the time period in which these offenses occurred, and in 2016, starting the investigation of the Rodin homicides. But I wanted to ask you that because from what I can tell, the social worker never mentioned anything in there as a stress factor. She just focused on your police work. And I would think, as I said, if you committed a
Your Honor,
series of thefts, wouldn't that cause stress? No, Mr. Bojo, let him talk.
I didn't want him to interrupt you.
Okay, go
I
ahead.
apologize.
No, go ahead.
I believe in the last letter that she provided, she spoke of the court cases and the stress and things that I was encountering because of that as well. I'm unsure. I believe I provided that to my counsel.
Yes, but that's again, in terms of the stress over this case, which has caused, I'm sure, untold trauma for you and your family. It's always the unintended innocent victims, the families, that actually suffer the most from one's criminal misconduct. All right. All right, as I said, each case is different. I have sentenced a number of public officials across the state. So I'm trying to determine a commensurate sentence, which I am required to do under Ohio law. This court sentenced Patrick Kelly, the former Athens County Sheriff, to 7 years in prison. He was convicted of engaging in a pattern of corrupt activity, which is different. That count was here, but through a plea bargain, that was dismissed. He also pled guilty to 10 counts of theft in office, 1 count of tampering with evidence, and 1 count of tampering with records. I also sentenced the Sandusky County Sheriff, Kyle Overmeyer. I gave him a sentence of 4 years in prison. He was charged on 3 counts of theft in office, 3 counts of deception to obtain a dangerous drug, 2 counts of tampering with government records. The court sentenced him to 4 years in prison. I also sentenced Detective Sean O'Connell of the Sandusky Sheriff's Office. He was charged with 1 count of tampering with evidence, an F3, and the court imposed a 2-year prison sentence in that case. I also want to deal with the issue of merger before go further here. Both sides have correctly cited to State versus Ruff, R-U-F-F, 143 Ohio State 3rd, 1114, 2015 Ohio 995, in office under RC 292141 A1, a felony of the 4th degree. The court is going to impose a prison sentence of 1 year. On count 3, which is also a theft in office count, same section as the court just read, that's also a felony of the 4th degree. The court's going to impose a 1 year prison sentence in that case as well. Tampering with evidence, count 4, 292112 A2, I think. A felony of the 3rd degree. The court is going to sentence you to 2 years in prison on that count. Count 6, tampering with evidence, the court is going to also sentence you to 2 years on that tampering with evidence charge. And for the remaining count of conflict of interest in M1, the court is going to impose 6 months in the Summit County Jail. Now, the court believes that some punishment is appropriate for what you have done in terms of tarnishing the name, not just of yourself and your family, but of all law enforcement. And the deterrent effect is something I take very, very seriously. I also take into consideration what defense counsel and the witnesses have said also. As I said, no person is either all good or all bad. In reference to the charges, count 2 and count 3, theft in office, the court had handed out a 1 year prison sentence on those counts. Even though they don't merge as a matter of law, the court is going to order that those 1 year sentences run concurrently with one another. In reference to tampering with evidence, as contained in count 4 and tampering with evidence in count 6, the court is going to impose a 2 year sentence on each of those 2 counts to run concurrently with one another, but consecutively to the 1 year sentence for a total prison sentence of 3 years. Court's going, and on the misdemeanor conflict of interest, I'm going to impose a 6-month sentence in the Pike County Jail to run concurrently with that sentence. The court is going to impose up to 3 years of discretionary post-release control. Now, the court has given you consecutive sentences. I'm going to cite to Revised Code Section 292914 C4. Multiple prison terms are imposed on an offender for convictions of multiple offenses. The court may require the offender to serve a prison term consecutively if the court finds the consecutive sentence is necessary to protect the public from future crime or to punish the offender, and the consecutive sentences are not disproportionate to the seriousness of the offender's conduct and the danger the offender poses to the public. And then it goes on to say under subsection CB, the court finds in this case that at least 2 of the multiple offenses were committed as part of one or more criminal pattern of criminal conduct, and the harm caused by 2 or more of these offenses are so great or unusual that no single prison term for any offense committed as part of the course of conduct adequately reflects the seriousness of the offender's conduct. It cannot be underestimated the damage that you have caused to the citizens of Pike County, to law enforcement who every day get up, face the same sort of stresses that you do. They go home at night, they get up in the morning, their family, they don't know if they're going to come home. The sacrifices that these men and women make, I think you made a mockery of them. I could have imposed a much greater sentence than I have. As I said, I've taken into consideration some of the mitigating factors, but punishment is appropriate. to sentence you to, I consider the minimum. However, to sentence you to anything less than 3 years in prison would demean the seriousness of the offense and not adequately protect society from future criminal conduct by yourself and others. You have the right to appeal the court's judgment and sentence in this case, Mr. Reeder. If you do not have the funds to file a notice of appeal, the court will provide those funds to you. If you cannot afford counsel to represent you on appeal, the court will provide counsel to you. If you cannot afford the documents or the transcript, the court also will provide that to you, and I will appoint an attorney if necessary to file a notice of appeal within 30 days. Mr. Bolger, have you talked to your client about whether or not you are going to represent him in the event of an appeal?
No, Your Honor, we have not. I didn't think that such a discussion would have been useful until sentencing was pronounced.
If you are the, you need to notify the court immediately if you're going to stay on the case for purposes of the appeal. If he is indigent, as I said, the court will appoint an attorney, and I will furnish the transcript and the records if need be. In the event you do represent him for purposes of appeal, I would instruct you, Mr. Bolger, to file a notice of appeal within 30 days of this sentence. All right, does the state have anything else you want to add?
Nothing from the state, Your
Does the
Honor.
defense have anything you want to add?
Your Honor, in our last telephone conference, there was some discussion of the situation that Sheriff Charles Reeder's father is in. There does seem to be a confirmation of the representations that I made in the telephone conference concerning the severity of his condition. Would the court consider giving us a report date?
All right, he pled guilty on, when was it, last year?
September 20th, I believe, Your
September
Honor.
20th, yes, all right. I have thought about this. If your father was on life support and some doctor, and I mentioned this, if some doctor had written a note saying that he was on death's doorstep, so to speak, I might consider that. But that's not the situation. And as I said, every action in life has a reaction. And it's normally the family of the defendant who suffers the most. Under Ohio law, a warden in a prison has the ability to grant a furlough under certain circumstances. If those circumstances should arise in the future, then you can notify the warden of the institution you're in, and at that point in time, he or she can consider the subject of furlough. All right. That concludes these proceedings.
El juez le había interrogado sobre el motivo por el que había robado ese dinero. El oficial Reeder explicó que cogió ese dinero solo porque quería apoyar a algunas organizaciones benéficas locales. Sin embargo, el juez no dio por válida esta respuesta, ya que la deuda de juego del oficial Reeder ha aumentado considerablemente desde entonces. El oficial Reeder fue condenado a un total de 6,5 años de prisión. Sin embargo, debido a que algunos cargos se ejecutarán concurrentemente, tendría que pasar solo 3 años en la cárcel. Si crees que este ha sido el único policía humillado por la autoridad de un juicio, espera a ver el siguiente caso.
If you have a place for me here, Lord, and you can be so grand. I never expected to have too much, but if you don't, I understand. There was silence all around the throne where the saints have often trod. As a policeman waiting.
Este es el exoficial William Melendez, del Departamento de Policía de Inkster. El 2 de febrero de 2016, el oficial Melendez se enfrentaba al juicio por una parada de tráfico que salió mal. Estaba siendo juzgado por agredir a un automovilista llamado Floyd Dent. de piel oscura, mientras lo detenía como en una parada de tráfico rutinaria. El señor Dent fue sujetado en el suelo mientras se observaba al oficial Meléndez golpeándole en la cabeza. Tras este incidente, fue despedido inmediatamente del Departamento de Policía de Inkster. El juez no aceptó excusas por los 16 puñetazos que el oficial Meléndez propinó al señor Dent.
I know I don't deserve a place among the people here. They never wanted me around, except to calm their fears. If you have a place for me here, Lord, it needn't be so grand. I never expected to have too much. But if you don't, I understand. There was silence all around the throne, where the saints have often trod. As a policeman waited quietly for the judgment of his God. Step forward now, policeman. You won your burdens well. Come walk with me on my heaven streets. You've done your time in hell. Your Honor, thank you. I submit to your judgment.
Thank you so much. Judges, by definition, are impartial decision makers in the pursuit of justice. They are to examine both sides and fashion punishment that is proportionate to what is morally acceptable to all the parties involved, the victim, the public, and the defendant. I'm going to start out with Mr. Dent. The victim involved in this tragedy is a 58-year-old black man who was driving his Cadillac in Inkster, a suburb of Detroit. On the evening of January 28, 2015, where his life changed forever. He was stopped by the defendant, a then Inkster police officer, and his partner, Officer Zelenowski. Mr. Dent was stopped for a minor traffic offense and ordered out of his vehicle. With his hands extended out of his driver's window, he was grabbed out, thrown to the ground, and struck 16 times in the head by the defendant. In his attempt to arrest him, he was thrown onto a window shield of a patrol car, bleeding profusely from a head injury. The responding police officers arrived as the defendant is wrestling the defendant to the ground. Mr. Dent was struck, kicked, and tased while on the ground by what appeared to be a group of angry, anxious police officers that celebrated after the defendant was beaten and cuffed. The video in the car shows the police officers fist bumping as a celebratory act of bravery by the defendant and his cohorts. But the one image that struck out to the court was looking at Mr. Dent in his cell, shaking his head. In disbelief of what had occurred to him. If his conduct was indicative of what he was thinking, I would have thought this. What crime did I commit? Being a black man in a Cadillac, stopped for a minor traffic offense by a group of racist police officers looking to do a nick. As Police Officer John Zelenowski, auxiliary police officer, testified in court too, in his response to a text, was quoted as saying, "At least give me the satisfaction of knowing that you're out there beating up right now. LOL." How humiliating and degrading that must have been. He was left in a cell for a number of hours before getting medical treatment. But after hearing the defendant and his fellow officers joke about his injuries as they were wiping blood off their uniforms with disinfectant. 2015. Please be quiet in my courtroom. How does this happen? I'm going to tell you how it happened. Some years ago, 19 to be, well, 25 to be exact, I remember coming into this building with such enthusiasm, so excited. You caused your lovely wife heartache, and you caused Mr. Dent severe anguish. And finally, in the words of Vicki Yost, your commander, accountability is required to ensure continued community trust and healing. Today, I can only punish your conduct, but only you and God can change your character. I've had an opportunity to listen to both sides. And I had to say this because I didn't say this during the trial. But it was my privilege to be able to oversee this trial because I had great lawyers. And great lawyers make jobs real easy. At this time, I am going to commit you to the Michigan Department of Corrections. However, after weighing the allegations in this particular matter and looking at all the circumstances, including what you've done and who the person I really believe that you are, I'm going to commit you to the Michigan Department of Corrections as to count 1 for no less than 13 months, no more than 10 years. As to count 2, I'm going to give you 90 days credit for time served and close it out. The court's going to give you 85 days for credit. You have 42 days to appeal my decision. That concludes this matter. Thank you.
La defensa destaca los años de dedicación al servicio del oficial Meléndez y sus numerosos reconocimientos, presentando el incidente como una decisión tomada en una fracción de segundo y no como un ataque deliberado. Destacan que el oficial Meléndez ya se ha enfrentado a importantes consecuencias, como la pérdida de su empleo, dificultades económicas y daños a su reputación. También relatan los sufrimientos de su familia, en particular de su esposa, que resultó herida en acto de servicio. Finalmente, el juez le impuso una pena de 13 meses a 10 años de prisión. Si crees que esto es lo máximo que se puede humillar a un policía, probablemente no conozcas el siguiente caso del exoficial Raja. Este es el exoficial Nouman Raja, del Departamento de Policía de Palm Beach Garden. El oficial Raja estaba en el juicio a punto de ser sentenciado en un caso en el que estuvo implicado en el asesinato de un automovilista inocente llamado Corey Jones. El oficial Raja, vestido de paisano, condujo una furgoneta sin distintivos en dirección contraria por una rampa de salida de la autopista antes del amanecer y se detuvo a escasos metros del todoterreno parado del señor Jones. Según el fiscal, el oficial Raja no se identificó en ningún momento como policía y actuó con tal agresividad que Jones pensó que se enfrentaba a un robo de vehículo o a una amenaza mortal. Jones, inspector de vivienda y batería a tiempo parcial, regresaba a casa tras una actuación en un club nocturno cuando su vehículo sufrió una avería. Días antes había comprado una pistola del calibre 38 para proteger la batería de $10,000 que llevaba en el todoterreno. El oficial Raja efectuó 3 disparos iniciales, lo que provocó que Jones huyera por un terraplén. La fiscalía afirma que Jones arrojó el arma, que más tarde se encontró a 125 metros de su cuerpo, pero el oficial Raja efectuó otros 3 disparos 10 segundos después del primero. El señor Jones fue alcanzado mortalmente por una bala en el corazón. Beax condenó al oficial Raja a 25 años de prisión. fue declarado culpable de homicidio involuntario y tentativa de asesinato en el tiroteo mortal contra el motorista de piel oscura que se había quedado tirado, lo que supone la primera vez en 30 años que un oficial del Estado es declarado penalmente responsable de un tiroteo en acto de servicio. Si crees que este fue el último policía humillado por la autoridad judicial, probablemente no hayas oído hablar del siguiente caso.
Get up, get up, get on your feet. You don't turn on me. Boy, this is the ERU SWAT team. Get on your feet. Get on your feet. Where's the taser? I can't move, man. Get on your feet. Oh, man. Get on your feet. My hands Don't turn on me.
Este es el oficial Brady Lovingier, del Departamento de Seguridad Pública de Denver. Anthony Waller sufrió un incidente inquietante durante su primera audiencia de asesoramiento en Denver, Colorado, acusado de varios delitos, entre ellos detención ilegal y agresión en un motel. El señor Waller compareció ante el juez completamente esposado, con grilletes y una cadena abdominal. Cuando el señor Waller pidió aclaraciones sobre algunos puntos, el oficial Brady Lovingier le puso una mano en la espalda, al parecer para guiarle hacia el secretario y que firmara el papeleo. Incómodo por el contacto físico, el señor Waller se volvió hacia el oficial Lovingier y le preguntó por qué hacía eso. De repente, el oficial Lovingier lo agarró por la cadena abdominal y lo golpeó con fuerza contra el marco metálico de una ventana. Mientras el señor Waller era arrastrado al pasillo, gritó diciendo que estaba herido. La agresión le dejó una herida en la cabeza y los dientes rotos.
False imprisonment, assault in the third degree, assault as a class 2 felony, and a misdemeanor charge as well in possession of drug paraphernalia. Thank you, sir.
Yes, ma'am. I'd like to object first. If I'm under investigation, I thought the investigation came first and then the arrest.
Right, but they have 3 days.
Oh, get up, get up, get up. Get on your feet. You don't turn on me. Boy, this is the ERU SWAT team. Get on your feet. Get on your feet. Where's the taser? I can't move, man. Get on your feet. Oh, man. Get on your feet. My hands Don't turn on me.
The sheriff will have to serve.